just knowing just even starting with just key things like how old is your ideal reader? What is the, are they more likely to be man or woman? Because the language is going to be different. So just even little distinctions like that will make a huge difference in not only the message you get, but also the response that you get from them.
Yeah. Yeah, well, exactly. And I'm sorry, I didn't start the recording right away, but we caught you partway through the conversation, Gary. But Wade, if you don't mind just repeating for the recording about the focus on that target market.
Well, I'll sort of segue from what Gary's saying too. I can say it in another way anyways that'll get it across. I don't know who said it, and I guess it really doesn't matter, but it was about knowing using an avatar as an ideology for understanding your target reader, your target market. So what's an avatar? Well, it's your perfect reader. I thought, well, isn't that being a little too specific? I mean, it's a guy who's 5'8", who wears a golf hat, and he's like, come on, is that the guy? And then I realized that was really important for me to get clear on. If I was talking to him right now, him or her, in my case, the demographic did lead towards a male, a specific age, was into these kind of things and really refined it. It's different if I imagined, if he asked me, what do? I had to get very clear on talking to that person, not the million others that I thought might like it. It's what Gary was saying. It's not everyone, and it's so important, and it was hard. I'll be honest. That was a challenge because I thought, well, no, I'm narrowing it too small. More people would like it. And I realized that that was the challenge for me. It was the resistance psychologically to saying my market's smaller than it was. And then once I got there, I realized now I could actually market properly, and then it actually expanded. So the important thing is to be clear on literally what their interests are, and the demographic of age if it matters to you, and geography even, depending on what you're writing or talking about. It can even be location based. So it's a lot of factors, but really it's simple. Having an avatar was an easy way for me to imagine that reader. Just having the idea of an avatar. So, well, it'd be kind of like this, and then I imagined talking to that person. How would I communicate what I was writing about to them? And it really made it easy to start writing copy and to communicating to that market.
Yeah, one thing that has helped me too to really define the market is once I published and had people giving me feedback, it's like, who is the most excited about my book?
Nice.
Who is the person who's saying, I just love that book?
That's
I had someone phone me from Minnesota or somewhere and say, this is Wendy? I'm really talking to the author? I just loved your book. And, I talked to her and went, okay, well, this person is really my perfect reader because she loves what I'm doing. And I've talked to others, when I've done public things and whatnot, who've come back to me and said, you have another book? I just love that first one. And so I can look at that person and say, okay, how is this a male or a female? Is it how old is she? What does she do? Mine are mostly female, but men do read my books. What does she do? What stage in life is she at? Is she got young kids? Is she retired? Is she kind of in those middle years? Where does she live? What's her life like? And then I can go, okay, well, this is my perfect reader. This is the kind of person. So now I can put a face to this reader, and when I write, my series or whatever, I can go, okay, I'm writing for her because she's the one who loves what I do, and there are more like her.
That's great. That's an excellent idea. It's like the
exactly.
I recall, it's sort of like the testimonials. Before I wrote, I didn't have testimonials, so I didn't have that benefit. Then you're right. Then after you get a list of testimonials, this gets pretty clear. Look at the type of people that are responding. That's a great point.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting because sometimes I've got so many books out there, and then because I deal with solopreneurs and authors, all of a sudden I started to realize that, oh wow, there's so many of us that are solopreneurs, but not every solopreneur wants to know what I'm doing. Same with every author; they don't all want to, so we have to kind of push it down and take it from there, and exactly what's going on, what who is actually going to read this book. And then I really had to narrow one of my first books that did extremely well. It was members of the Chamber of Commerce that filled in their application for somebody with under 5 employees. So all of a sudden you go to a chamber meeting, then you start to pinpoint exactly who those particular individuals
are.
are.
And there I am, but I don't know that
from,
anybody can hear me.
Hey, yes,
they can hear me, but I can't hear them.
Yeah, that's what happened to me.
I'm sorry, guys. I got my tech guy on the other end, and he's trying to work it out. I'll put it on mute, and I can't hear anything but you on the phone, boss.
Okay, we're going to X you out and bring Wendy back in for a minute.
Should be, yeah, but maybe that's the problem.
No, all right. You better kill him off.
Yeah.
Okay, Gary, we'll bring Wendy back in.
I have just a question for Gary. You were thinking about, well, because I know you have some pretty exhaustive stuff that you do with clients regarding target market stuff. If you were to sort of bullet a few of the ones that you would think, if I'm talking to a client, this is what I would, if out of the 50 questions I have, these few would probably be the most important that they cannot overlook. They must do before they even think about moving into their market.
Well, I think there's all kinds of different questions that could be asked, and I think a good rule of thumb is if a author thinks about creating a character profile for their ideal reader. So when they're thinking about a character for their book, there's a process they go through. What are they going to what are they going to look like? What are the behaviors? What are their their strengths and their weaknesses? If it can get into the mind of your ideal reader and create that character profile, then we have something to work with that we can then do ads to. Then we can do blogs to. Then we can do blabs to. I mean, it allows us to have that that icon we can look at, say, like Wendy was saying, that if you're going to write and if you're going to do anything, it's to that person, right? So some of the things is definitely the age. So how old is your ideal reader, right? Masculine, feminine, so are they men, women? Because again, the languaging that you do is going to be different for that, and a lot of people when they do their marketing don't understand that the language you use to communicate to a woman is completely different than the language you use to a man. A lot of marketing out there is very masculine directed, and so therefore women kind of have to put up with it and read through the lines, if you will, to get what they want.
Yeah, exactly. It's unfair.
And that's how you know that business owner didn't do the research to know that person on the other end it's not resonating with what they need to hear or see, right? So the ideal income is also, if you can know their ideal income of what their household or even individually earning, that also gives you an idea of the type of clientele. It gives you an idea of what you can do for packaging, what you do for promotional material, for all those kinds of things, and whether they're going to be in a position to purchase those things to build a business. Right.
Excellent.
And what else did I do? Also, like when it's saying, get to know their life. So, are they more likely to have children? What's the school level that they've high school, college, ideal home life. So if you can kind of walk through virtually, what I do is when I work with clients, I get them to virtually walk through a day in the life of their ideal client, to look through everything from what are they driving? What are they driving up to when they come home from work? What are their neighbors? Just to kind of get into that whole virtual reality experience of who is it that I'm targeting, right? What kind of leisure things do they do? And in the writing realm, to kind of get an idea and to describe. One of the tasks I give authors is to write a short story describing the ideal escape that your reader wants.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Oh yeah,
Do they
yeah.
want
That's
that
a great
escape of
idea.
thrill? Do they want that escape of, you know, romance? What's the escape that they're looking for? And if you can create that, then that also starts to formulate more of the who that person is.
You know, it's amazing listening is how, I'll give it to you in a second, Bette. I just wanted to interject how detailed it is. Now, I don't know if many people who were watching this or thought about it this, maybe some of you did. I certainly didn't. When I was understanding the idea of an avatar and defining my market, I had no clue how detailed it became. And one thing I really want to stress about this is sometimes maybe you put out a book and maybe some of you notice that, you let some people read it, or you get some reviews that are off what you thought. Maybe you get some feedback thinking, well, people actually don't like this. A lot of that can be, believe it or not, because you didn't target your market well. Not that people don't like it, but that the message was too wide, it wasn't targeted, the people who are reading and consuming your content weren't in the target market, you get feedback from them, and they happen to be the loudest voice. So the importance of targeting is critical for you to keep your heart involved and to be certain that, okay, my message is appealing to that market. So I know where to spend my marketing dollar, because if you don't, you're spending way too much money, I can speak from experience, too much time, and a whole pile of things because you weren't conscious of, okay, this is who I'm talking to. And then you know the feedback's direct from your audience when you do get it. It's proper from what your target is.
Yeah, exactly. So Myles, you've had some great successes with Amazon. Did you have to go through any of the target marketing scenarios, or what did you have to do? Or
Well, I didn't sit down and do any of the classic MBA target marketing things that you could do because fiction is pretty general. What I decided to do was write a book that would appeal to people who, and formulated to the kinds of things that hit bestsellers in the category I was looking at. And then so the book's called Revenge School, and the idea was I wanted a memorable name, and I wanted a concept that would appeal to people who read books like Jack Reacher's, or Lee Child's Jack Reacher, or Robert Parker Spencer. And it was a serious character, and Amazon just looked at it and said, well, okay, we know where to put that on the shelf and what readers, on the physical shelf anyway, and what readers it's going to appeal to. So it was segmented more on a, I guess it's a psychographic lifestyle approach than a 35, 49 female, college education kind of thing.
But you can be sure that Amazon has done all that, right? So, I mean, Amazon just did it for you.
Yeah, and they don't share much of that stuff with you either.
No, of course. Yeah.
Too bad.
Yeah.
No, they keep that a mystery.
Yeah, so they're very good about that particular part, and obviously, it shows up on the other people bought this, and there's linkages and those kinds of things back and forth that are very nice. And when they get behind it, you're really in good shape, and they just see the value of a serious character at this point that falls into that category. So,
yeah, can you get any information from Amazon? So you really never know who your readers actually are then.
I know nothing. The next point for me is going to be to make sure that there's an offer in the back of every book that has something to get an email response so that I can build up.
Yeah, way to go.
Yeah.
Good for you.
Have to do that immediately.
I don't know if you guys have tried that stuff, but I know that it clearly can be done in the back of the book, and that's the next plan. And I have a list of, because the story is about people who don't know how to defend themselves, and most people who don't know how to defend themselves wind up going to a Krav Maga class or a karate class or something like that, where they find out that it takes 10 years to be any good at it.
Yeah, buy a gun.
Yeah, gun's a good one. And then I have
I'm just kidding.
A whole list of other things that you can learn to use without much lessons. So hopefully I'll have some videos here shortly of a thing called anybody know what a monkey's paw is? Monkey's paw is a round metal ball wrapped in a knot that looks like.
Oh, yeah.
And
oh, wow.
So I have several of those, and I'm starting to do those as an email incentive list. If people like to find simple things, there's a guy in Ireland that makes a coin purse that also doubles absolutely perfectly as blackjack, which useful,
Yeah.
But,
made me think of something you mentioned about hardcover. Some people, they like the old school purists, authors, writers, and readers love the physical book, the smell of the pages, the ink, the brand new book. I do as well. Yet I am very akin to the digital world, and a lot of people resist it and might want to share with them the benefits of the digital world. Is exactly what Myles said. When you have a digital version of something, you have tons of ways to communicate with your audience that a physical book can never do. You know, from a little link in the front, inside, before the end of the book, that leads them to some little bonus character element that's part of your book, and they have to opt in to get it. Now they're on your list in a sequence of autoresponders following up with other books, back-end offers. Maybe you do speaking. I mean, there's a list of things you can do. That's hard to do in a physical book. So those of you who are just kind of resistant to it, I would encourage you to enter the world, whether it's Kindle, Amazon, and go digital. It doesn't have to be your core platform, but you're missing the boat if you're not really taking advantage of it.
Has anybody here tried inserting multimedia, short multimedia things into their books at this point?
I haven't in my particular genre. Having said that, in the delivery of it, there is video. So yeah, I guess I have, but maybe not in the sense that you're mentioning it.
Okay, because I was approached by somebody yesterday who wanted to do an actor who wants to come in and do a he's going to sit there with a hat on. You won't be able to see his face, but he wants to read portions of the book in between, and has suggested that we use an animator to throw some photomatic kind of things in so that he can enliven a scene and then maybe move into the next one. And I'm going to try it and see what happens. So
I think that's what's intriguing about the digital world. Your book can become alive. I mean, I think that's brilliant what you're doing. I think that, to me, that would engage me as a reader.
Yeah, exactly.
Especially if the content fits it.
Yeah, especially if you have it in there in a way that when Amazon's selling the book, they have a way to get back to you.
Yeah.
And then you start to know who your real target audience is at that point.
Great information, yeah.
Yeah, I'm actually going to do a couple of them, send them to Amazon, and see if they'll incorporate it into the existing book as an addition or a test market thing. So we'll see how that goes.
That's great.
So, and then we start. I don't know if anybody's tried this either. I'm starting to do videos of these various weapons that are with my grandkids. So I say, you know, if they can beat me up with this weapon, then anybody else can, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And they like whacking on me so far.
Well, exactly. And you never know where those kinds of things lead, because we'll get back a little bit to sort of that target audience, like who's reading the book, who wants to know about this stuff. Maybe two different audiences. We don't know that at this point, especially if Amazon's keeping it secret from you.
Yeah, one of the things, I was at a conference that Lee Child spoke at. It was the International Thriller Writers Conference in New York in July. And it was pretty amazing to me because the discussion was how much sex should there be in thrillers. And Lee said, oh, there's going to be more sex in the next one. And it was pretty funny, but you could just see all the women in the audience, which was about 80% of it, going, oh, good, oh, good, oh, good. And it ran around the room. So he hadn't realized, I'm sure he realized by now because he's on book number 20, but he had not realized, apparently he had not realized that the women in the audience were interested in having romance added to his books in a way that he'd never envisioned before. So, and the response from readers was crazy. And, you know, if a guy who knows a lot and has a lot of data still found it surprising.
That's incredible. What a tip.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting, the offshoots of the audience. I know, Wendy, you write a lot of romance type novels, but you also mentioned you had another interest in there. And that could be two separate components as well. Like you were saying, that you like the mystery part, or is it the thriller part?
Well, no, I write action, adventure, suspense. It's kind of like / suspense. If you think of the movie Romancing the Stone, that's kind of the genre, or Raiders of the Lost Ark with a little bit more romance in it. So there's lots of action. This is it's hard to just put something in a box sometimes, and I think a lot of authors find this with genres. It's like it overlaps. It could be action, it could be suspense, it could be romance, but really it's kind of all of those, and sometimes that makes it actually trickier to find your audience. So just putting a label on the kind of writing that you do can sometimes make it easier to find the audience. So if I say suspense, sometimes people's mind just go to police procedurals or murders or, you know, that kind of thing. Well, I don't really write that. I write more sort of fun action, you know, there's a lot of archaeology and things like that in that genre of books that I write. I also write sweet romance, which is romance that the bedroom door is closed. So that's a specific audience as well, and they want to know that there's not going to be sex scenes. They want to know that going in, that they're not going to go, oh man, I don't want to see that. So it's really important to know the audience for each thing that you write, and kind of what motivates them, you know, why they feel that way about that particular thing. You know, the readers that read my action novels, there's not blood and gore in them. It's just sort of like more fun action and a little bit lighter hearted, but I also put a lot of research in, and people go, wow, I learned so much from that. Well, that's going to be a different kind of audience than the person who just wants to read a nice little story in bed at night and sleep well.
Yeah.
So how do you guys decide which audience, how do you approach the audience thing? The way I approach it is I want to fit in something that somebody can find on a bookshelf. So I don't worry. I mean, I figure I've got to be, if it's a metaphysical bookstore, I've got to be on the thriller rack or the mystery rack, because and how you're classified in Amazon can dramatically change your sales on that too. Because if they miscategorize me, and I've had friends miscategorized into true crime, and then their books are functionally, you can't find them anymore. So.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because I write nonfiction, mine can be a little easier to know exactly what shelf I go on. I'll go into a Chapters or a Barnes and Noble, and I'll sort of scan the shelves to see exactly where I think, how they categorize me rather than what I want to categorize. Then I take it from there, and I look for similar ones also on Amazon to see what they're categorized or what, you know, areas they put it in. And that's where I start to put them in. So it's that's the way for my physical bookshelves, that's the way I do it. And then I try to carry that over to the Kindle side of it as well. And Wade, what about yours on a bookshelf?
No, mine, digital world, all digital.
Okay.
All digital. Everything was digital from day one, and that's many moons ago. I just wanted to back up quickly with something Wendy said about motivation. Like, what motivates the person to do or want or likes your material? That's pretty important. Like, if you're going to write, like, for someone to say it doesn't get on Amazon or is on Amazon but it's not their core sales platform, you're selling from their website or some other social, they have a different campaign going. Knowing the motivation of that reader is critical to the wording you use when you're communicating to them. I mean, that's very important. If I know, like in my case, winning is the thing, as opposed to shooting a low score or having a great swing or all these other things, well, that's a very different thing than someone who's worried about, say, consistency. In my market, say, of golfers, they want to win. The conversation is very different. I mean, I can really target that conversation, even the follow-up messages when they enter a funnel based on it. And we won't get into the conversation. The funnel's a little too large for this call, maybe in the future.
Yeah.
It's very important for understanding the communication of your marketing message with that motivation. I mean, I'm glad you mentioned that, Wendy. That's a big driver.
Yeah, I just want to warn everybody, we've got about 5 more minutes. So,
do you guys do A/B split testing and that kind of stuff of messages to see what the responses are? Yes, but not as thorough as we can. Necessarily for my world, I will say, because I'm carrying a lot of the balls, to split test every aspect of it, it doesn't get done to the level it should, but I'm totally committed to it in the copy. I'm committed to it on the front end. Headlines, the initial exposure, even more important than the back end, because the only thing they see, the old cliche, you can't judge a book by its cover, but it sure can determine if you're going to open the book. And so it's like that landing page has to be tested. That's the one. I think if you had a choice, you have to do them all, but really if you only could do one, I would do that first exposure. Split test that a lot. Yeah, what I've found is that in talking to authors who write the kind of fiction I do, that the average person walks into a bookstore and looks at their book for less than 10 seconds, front cover, inside front cover, first page. If you haven't sold them by then, grab a lot.
That's incredible. That just supports that point. And on the internet, it's maybe you're getting down to fractions a second because people are consuming it so quick. They scan, blast. If it doesn't somehow capture them, and that's where Wendy mentioned about the motivation. If that's got to be in the headline, how am I going to answer their biggest problem motivation right there? And it's always quite an art. I remember someone was instructing me, don't write 1 or 2 headlines, write 100. I go, 100? 100? I'm just trying to craft a good one. No, that's your mistake, I was told. Don't craft the good one. Write 100 of them and then start pulling some out and test them because you don't know what the audience is going to respond to. Can't assume that you do in advance. So just throw them out there, rotate through them. Oh, geez, that one spiked. And then once you get those, that becomes your base and you keep testing against that. Then you go, well, that's really what they're responding to. Then craft and make the perfect message. Very true for what you're saying, Myles, too. The person sees the book cover, like you say, the front, open it, first little bit. That's gotta pull. I mean, it really does, right?
Yeah, you were mentioning, Myles, and we had a conversation this week about crafting sort of the cover letter or the preface so that it grabs the attention of the reader right away and they buy the book.
Right. I change mine periodically for a couple of reasons. I used to write advertising, and I'll tell you for a fact that if you write 150 headlines, you'll find the one you want somewhere in that kind of range. But the other thing, having done a great deal of direct response marketing prior to becoming a writer, newness really helps. So even if you have a really good ad and a really good program, it will decay fairly quickly. And I used to sell software, and every time we put a new ad in, it jumped up for the first 3 or 4 weeks and then slowly decayed. So what you were trying to do was bring up new ones that continually make the graphics a little different, so the ad looks a little different. You play with it. The newness is really critical to that, and freshness. So, and somebody here has sent in a comment, I think it's Hip and Cool now, says that he's got offers in his book, and and it's generated an additional $30K in business in the last couple of years. So all of us probably need to think about that. The other mistake I made very early on was I didn't realize that they would, if you look at the sample on Amazon in the first 15 pages, they limit the number of pages. And at one point, one of my other nonfiction efforts, all you saw was the introductory page, the acknowledgments page, the chapter page, and you never got to anything that was actually interesting before they gave up. So you want to look at what your first pages are when somebody looks inside, if that'll help you too. But in crafting, I want something that grabs somebody. I think for what I do, you have to have a character that people are interested in, and you have to grab them by their heartstrings. I'll clean that up a little bit. Or you're out of luck, and if you haven't done that in the first couple of paragraphs, they've moved on.
Yeah, for sure. I'm going to have to wrap this up because we're a little over time right now. But any last comments you want to make, Myles?
Yeah, Lee Childs. I've been reading the book by Lee Childs, and he took about 5 weeks to write the first 2 paragraphs. Just to give you an idea of a 7-month process to write a book, 5 weeks were the first 2 paragraphs.
The importance of that initial exposure. That's a great example.
And I think that's whether it's a novel or a book, a nonfiction book. I'll tell you the other thing I think in this world, many nonfiction books get into way too much detail without hitting facts and benefits pretty clearly in that first page.
Yeah. Now, Myles, in the messages section, can you put in your contact information so everybody either looking at the recording or listening in can get a hold of you?
Is that the send messages section on this? I'm sorry.
Yeah, it is. Yes.
Yeah, sure. Happily. And thank you for inviting me. And if anybody does have questions, I'm sorry I had some technical issues on this end early on. I tested the entire system an hour ago, and now it didn't want to work. So
those things happen. So, we do... Okay, so we should have, you got your...
I'm doing it.
Okay. I just heard the recording going until we see it. There it is. RevengeSchool.com, Myles at grit-lit.com, and there's your phone number as well. And Wendy, did you want to add any links?
Sure, I'll put that in now.
And Wade, same thing. And Gary, I know you're hip and cool looking in the background, so just add that while we still have the recording, and then I'll let everybody know when the recording's up. And Myles, I'll ping you on Skype.
Thank you.
And you got my comment on Skype earlier, I hope, on a link to your blog on a page.
Oh yes, thank you very much. I did get that.
Okay, good. I let everybody know if I find something. So
yeah, it's tech day for me. I'm going to go kick a speaker.
So Wade, you're putting some information in?
Yeah, it wasn't just my golf stuff. You can go ahead. It's okay.
No, if I stop the recording, nobody sees it.
No, it's okay. It's all good. Cheers.
Okay. Bye, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.